Hey everyone, in today's video we're going to learn how to make this flying tails cake topper. So if you've seen the Sonic one, it's quite similar really. So we're going to start off with some shoes. So I've just got some red fondant. I've rolled it into sort of like a sausage shape and I'm just flattening the bottom with my fingers and then just inputting with the ball tool where the middle of the shoe would be. And then I'm just defining that again with my fingers. We're going to put in the hole for the legs at the top. So you can see you've got something that looks like that. And then we're just going to chop off the end because Tails' shoes, I believe, are white on the end. And then we're just going to roll another sausage, but this time in white. And we're going to chop off the end, and that's going to be used to stick to the front of the shoe to create sort of like that two-tone, well, not two-tone, but the white on the red. So I'm just going to trim the excess off and then just push that together. So there you've got both feet. We're going to put a black sole on this one. So I've just rolled out some black modelling paste and I'm just cutting around the shoes. And then I'm just going to use my fingers just to push that in place on the bottom. And we're going to do the same with the other shoe. And then we're just going to mark in some lines where they're going to have like I think it's like the side of the trainer where the tongue is. We're going to mark in those areas. And then we're just going to put some holes in where the laces will be. So just like that. We're going to put these to one side to dry and I'm just going to talk you through the structure. So this is just armature wire and I've taken it and I've folded it in half at the top and then I've just wrapped them together. And so you can see it's still quite flexible. And then I've taken some thinner wire and I've just put that together for the other leg. Ideally you need some pliers to be able to pinch this together quite firmly because it was quite hard for me to move. And the wire does get warm when it's being handled quite a lot. So you just need to be careful that you're not handling it too much. It's got quite a long base on the bottom and this is what's going to be stuck into the cake. Now I've just wrapped it in some floral tape. It just helps the fondant stick to that frame just a little bit easier. So it should look like this and I've already put it into a rough shape of how Tails is going to be. And I'm just securing this in a dummy whilst I work on the figure. How I've secured it into the cake is I've put a straw, like a dowel, in the cake, put some fondant in there, and then I've put the wire in. So first we're going to make the legs. So I've just rolled out some sausage shapes and I'm just going to cut down the middle of one of those and just put a little bit of water in. And this is what I'm going to use to get it around the wire that I've got. So because obviously he's got fur, you don't have to worry too much about having a join on there. But you can see I'm just pushing it on and pushing the wire into the middle and pinching it on the other side. And I'm just going to use a tool just to rub in that join a little bit. And then we're going to go ahead and texturize the leg. We're going to trim off the end because we don't need it to be quite that long. And once the paste firms up, it will hold its shape a little bit easier. But it was quite warm on the day that I made this, so the fondant is quite soft. So just texturizing it. I will put the link in the description box below to all of the tools that I've used and the armature wire as well. We're going to add on the second leg, and again I've just texturized it the same as before. And now we're going to go on to make the body. So I've just rolled a bit of a teardrop shape. I'm going to wet the body and then we're just going to push that on, just twisting the wire to go through. And at this point it doesn't matter if you push it out of shape or anything because we are going to work on it once it's on there. So you can see I'm just pushing the fondant down to the bottom to make it join to the legs. I'm just rolling it back and forth and we're just going to again just wet a Dresden tool or something similar to what I've got and we're just going to rub that over the join. Now, similar with the Sonic figure that I made, we're just going to put an extra piece of fondant just where the legs join onto the body, just to blend that area in a little bit. And we're going to take off the excess, and that's going to leave us enough space for our head to fit on. So just a little bit of a flat sausage, and we're going to push it up and then pull it down to sort of fill that gap in that we had around the leg area. And we're going to do the same for the other side. Just smoothing it in. If you wet your tools a little bit, it just makes it a little bit easier to join in that line. But we are going to texturize the whole thing, so you shouldn't need to go into too much effort to do that. So again, with the same tool as before, we're just going to texturize, and I'm going to just go over any lines that I see with a little bit of water. Just blending those out a little bit, and then back over with the texturing tool. Next, we're going to roll some white, and we're going to put this in the middle of his body, and because he's got a white bit of fur in the middle. And then we're going to texture that too. You may have some questions at the end of this video. I have never done anything like this before, so this was the first time that I've ever done anything like this. I would recommend using a slightly stronger wire. I didn't travel with this in the cakes. I travelled with it in a separate box, and I set it up at the venue. But the kids really did love it. It did have a bit of a wow factor for the kids and the parents too. So once you've done that, we're going to attach the feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a kebab skewer through where I want the wire to go, and then add a little bit of water, and then we're just going to slide that on. Now you can use edible glue if you want to. I just prefer to use water. And we're going to do the same for the other side. So just pop that on. And then we're going to make the socks for around the ankles. So just flatten in a sausage, and then we're just going to draw a line through the middle of that, just to give it a bit of a crease, make it look a bit more natural. And so you can see that's the length of the wire at the bottom. And I've just twisted some more wire around it just to make it a bit stronger. I'm just going to take that shoe off whilst I put this on so I don't knock it off. We're just going to wrap it around to the back and then just push it on. Wet around the bottom of the sock, and this is just going to join the shoe to the sock as well as the leg and just make it a little bit more sturdy. You're going to do the same for the other one, following the same process. Now you might need to leave this to dry because the feet are not supported by anything right now, so they might just need a little bit of time to dry. For the head, I've got a 1-inch polystyrene ball, and you can see that I've got a piece of fondant, and that's my child. I've just flattened it around the edges. We're going to pop the ball in the middle of that, and we're just going to bring that fondant round to the base, and we're going to pinch it together and then just roll it between your hands just to make it into a bit of a ball. You're going to teardrop it a little bit, just so it's got a little bit of a point at the bottom like that. And then with sort of like a white sausage that's flatter on the sides than it is in the middle, you're going to chop out some fur marks. So I struggled with this to try and find a way to do it where it looked natural. Originally I started with the scalpel, just chopping pieces out, and then you'll see later on that I actually moved to scissors to try and get it to fall a little bit better. But do whichever one works for you. I'm showing you both ways to do it. We're just going to stick that on. So I've marked out briefly where I want the eyes. We're just going to stick that on, and you don't want to wrap it around the face. You want sort of like the sides of the fur to just stick out slightly. So you can see I've just pulled them forward. I'm just going to texturize it just the end with the scriber needle. Just using my thumb to hold it in place so I don't push it down. And now when I've done this, this is when I've realised I've pulled it a little bit too far, but I'm going to go with the scissors in a minute. We're just going to add a little bit of texture to that fur that we've got there. And we're going to put in a little smile, just using the sharp side of the Dresden tool. We're going to mark in a little bit of a nose. And just like a half smile. And then just some little dimples. And then a little black nose. So I'm just pushing it between my fingers just to make it into a bit of a triangle. And then we're just going to mark out roughly where we want the eyes to go. Now they don't need to sit inside the head at this point because we are going to add like an eyeliner on. So you can see there that I'm just trimming off some of the fur to make it fall a little bit more natural. Just making sure that as I'm cutting that, I'm not pushing it down onto the rest of the face and that it is still elevated at the front. Now I always thought Tails was a boy, but apparently somebody told me that it was a girl. I'm not quite sure. So just with the eyes, some little ovals, and we're just going to chop off the bottom, and then just with a little bit of pressure and a little bit of water, we're just going to apply this into the eye socket we've just made. So I like to do this with my Dresden tool so I can just push it into where it needs to be. Trying to push the edges and not the centre, because we do want it to have a little bit of a rounded edge. We're going to do the same with the other side, and then for the colours of the eyes, again I've just rolled some sort of like long oval shapes, and we're going to pop that more to the centre of the eye in the middle rather than the centre of the actual white part. And then I've just got some blue, and I'm going to go around the edges to make the edges quite darker. Now you always want to make sure the top of the eye is quite dark, the bottom of the eye is quite light, because obviously that's the way usually your top of the eyes are shaded by your eyelids. And I'm just using a tiny bit of water just to bring that colour in from the edges. If you do bring it in too much, you can always just add a little bit more colour or add a bit more water to bring it back out. Same process with the blacks of the eyes. Pop those in the middle. And then I've just rolled a kind of like a sausage shape again that's pointier at one side. And we're just going to lay that on top of the eye. Just like that. And just using the Dresden tool just to push it into place. You only need a little bit of water to join these on. Too much water and it'll just slip all over the place, and you'll probably bleed the colour of the eye as well. So just using the Dresden tool to get right into the corners. My chunky fingers would never reach in there, so that's why I use my tools quite a bit. And then we're just going to texture around the eyes and around the back of the head. So try to keep going in the same direction as the fur would naturally fall as well. So this is what it should look like once you've done both, once you've texturized the fur. I've got some small white dots just for the white reflection in the eye. And then go around the rest of the head, just texturizing. And then we are going to make a little bit of hair for the front of the forehead. So it kind of has like a little flick. So I've just taken a piece of fondant and I've cut some chunks out of it to kind of give it this sort of, I would say, chicken-esque thing for the top. And we're just going to texturize that on both sides. Like so. And you kind of want it to kind of droop over a little bit. But it did remind me of the things that chickens have. We're just going to stick that on. And once you've got the base on, you can then play around with the bits that are dangling forward. We're just going to push in and blend in that join. Remember, if you just use a little bit of water, you can hide it a little bit more better. And then just pushing those into place, like so. and then texturising around the base where we've just joined that on. Like that. So that's what you should have so far. So we've got the arms and the tail at the back to do. Now the tail on the back is usually quite big, but I never made it massive because I was a bit concerned about the weight of the topper versus the weight of the wire. I only used one single wire that was coming from the foot down into the cake because I kind of wanted to give the illusion that he was flying. And I did that just by hiding the wire behind the other figure that I put on the cake. So if I wanted to make this again, I would ideally go for a stronger wire just so that I could make the tail a little bit bigger. But basically the tail shape is a teardrop shape, and you're chopping off the pointy end and adding a smaller pointy white bit, and then we're going to texturize that for both of those. And then they kind of crisscross each other or come out to either side. So I did mine joining in the back properly, but they didn't stick out as much as what they do on the film. Another way to make the structure, but make the figure lighter, is you could use a polystyrene ball inside of the body as well, which obviously would then allow you to make the tails a lot bushier for this figure. So we're going to chop off at an angle, and this is just going to allow us to be able to stick that to the figure without it popping out too much. So we're going to flip him over, or flip her over, and then just attach with a little bit of water. So at this point I'm leaving it stood up on a polystyrene ball, drying. And we're just going to roll out some more sausages, and these are going to be for the arms. So for the hand, a small white oval, we're going to cut out a thumb and just round off that thumb area. And then we're going to take out the fingers, so a line across the bottom, and then a line in the middle, and then we're halving both of those sections. And then you're just rolling basically the fingers between your fingers, just to round off the ends of that. It can get a bit fiddly. And then we're just going to put a cocktail stick through the arm, and then chop the top of the hand off, and then attach that onto the cocktail stick. Move the arm down, and then we're going to create the band that goes around. So the same as what we did for the sock. And then we're just going to wrap that around the arm. So that's the arm we've got. You're going to do the same for the other side. Just pushing the fingers how you want them to go. Texturizing the arm, and then we're going to cut off at an angle so that this will slip on to our body. Now I've put the cocktail stick in first, just to make sure that I'm not damaging the arm, and we're just going to attach that with a little bit of water. So I actually chose to raise the arm up slightly, more near the neck, just to make it look a little bit more natural. And then for the ears, just 2 teardrops, and you're just going to push in your Dresden tool to create the section of the ear. And then we're just going to apply these to the head with a little bit of water. I'm going to chop off the bottom. And these ears go sort of like to the side of the head slightly. So just with a tiny bit of water, we're just going to push that on. And so you can see I'm always supporting the figure, holding the body rather than holding the structure. Here's what the finished topper looked like. So you can see there where it's hidden behind the boy. And here was the finished cake. I hope you've liked today's video. If you have, please give a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and turn on the notifications. And if you'd like to see more of my videos, please click the links on the screen now. Thanks for watching.